Hello and welcome to Barbecue Elevated. Want to take your prime rib to the next level? Want to really up your game with it and make the best prime rib possible that all your friends will love and enjoy and your family as well? That's what we're going to do today. We're going to make some smoked prime rib. Not only are we going to smoke this thing on the Franklin BBQ Pit, but I'm also going to show you how it can be seared on the Franklin BBQ Pit. And this right here is the end result. But first we're going to take this all the way back to the very beginning, starting with yesterday with the dry brine. Alright, so here's our prime rib. This is what we're going to get prepared for smoking later. It's actually going to be tomorrow when we do the smoking, but for dry brining, the reason why you want to dry brine is if you want to get a really rich, deep, salty flavor specifically into your meat. The other reason why you can do it is if you're cooking poultry with skin and you want to dry the skin on the poultry out, like on a chicken, turkey, chicken wing, any poultry that has skin on it, you're going to want to dry brine, dry the skin out, and that's what helps to make it crispy while you're smoking it. Otherwise, it's really, really difficult to make skin crispy. It usually just kind of gets mushy and soft and not great. Anyways, for dry brining though, I like to really dry brine steaks. Typically, you want to do it at least a few hours before you cook it. But if possible, it's fantastic to do it a day in advance, especially on a thicker piece of meat like a prime rib, like what this one here is. You can do it on pork loin as well. You can do it on beef tenderloin. Really any of those larger pieces of meat that you just really want to get some good flavor into. I love doing it on pork loin. Love doing it on briskets and beef tenderloin. All of those are great. And with a prime rib, since essentially it is steak, it just hasn't been sliced up yet. It's ribeye, right? It's ribeye steak. It just hasn't been cut up yet into steak. That's where I like to dry brine my prime rib, because it really helps to enhance that flavor, enhance the overall quality of it. Not a lot that you need for dry brining. Really, you just need the meat, of course. You need then a rack, something to put on. You don't need the rack while you're doing the actual salting of the meat. You just want to keep it on a rack and then put it on a baking sheet, something like this. Put it on a baking sheet after the fact. Air can get underneath it to dry it out, and so it's not just sitting there soaking it in blood. That it's actually there's an air gap between the meat and the pan, so that it can help to dry that out and help to really get the salt into it. Something you can also do, if you want to, is you can get a meat tenderizer. I have a meat tenderizer. I don't typically find that I need to use it when I'm dry brining in advance. However, if I was doing this a couple hours before, I go through and puncture this with a meat tenderizer. That really helps to get the salt down into the meat quicker. But because I'm waiting a day before I start smoking this, I don't really feel like I need to use a tenderizer, because the salt's going to work its way into the meat just from sitting for a while. The other thing sometimes you'll need is just a knife to do some basic trimming. If you have any pieces that are hanging off, if you have one side that's like really thin or just too thin, you want to just really cut that off, because it's just going to dry out in smoking. It's not even worth wasting your salt on trying to dry brine it. Just cut it off, get it out of the way. You really want your prime rib to just be the same thickness and consistency all the way through. This one came this way, so I don't really feel like I need to do any trimming. It's consistent and thick all throughout. I'm not really worried about it. So that's a tip too, I guess, if you want, when you're looking at your prime rib, if you don't want to waste money on product you're just going to cut off and throw away, buy one that just already looks like it's consistent all the way through, doesn't have any thin ends on it. So, of course, marbling is a big thing that really matters. Fat cap on top of the meat matters. This is the bottom side of it, so this is where you can see where the ribs would normally be. This one ended up being boneless. Do a bone-in prime rib also. I feel like both can be made really great. For me, I just don't really like to deal with the bones, at least not right now. So I bought one without the bones already. I'm just getting out of the way. This is about a 16.5 pound prime rib as well. So anyways, let's get started with the dry brine. No trimming to do, nothing to do really. It's just a matter of getting out our salt. I like to use kosher salt. You could use table salt if you wanted to, but I like kosher salt just because it has the bigger grains on it, so you can see where you've already got covered with salt, because we really want to cover everything here. You can kind of go two ways with getting the salt on. One, you can just pour the salt out into a cup and just use your fingers and just kind of sprinkle it over the top if you want to, or you can just use the bottle here, which is what I like to do, and just use the shaker to just shake it across. Either way, both same result, just two different methods. So what we're going to do is just start by coming across here, just come all the way across. Really want to get every bit of this meat. It's okay to go a little bit heavy, because this isn't going to stay on the outside. This is going to work its way down into the meat. So heavy is fine. You're not going to overdo it. And then just kind of go through on the sides, get all of the sides done. And I like to just kind of pat the salt in. I feel like that just kind of helps you get started. Just make sure it's in the meat. I'm going to turn over here and come do this side real quick. And just kind of use my hand to help make sure I'm not wasting a bunch of salt and not missing. Use the hand to kind of deflect the salt into the meat. And if you notice, I'm only using my left hand, of course, for this, keeping my right hand clean because it's touching a bottle that's got salt in it. So go ahead and just get all of this. Okay, so now we've done the bottom side. Now the fun part, trying to flip this over one-handed. Okay, got it flipped over. Go ahead, get this end real quick. And then just come across the top. Just get it all over. And if you notice, the fat cap on this one, it's all the way across. But it's not super thick. If it was a super thick fat cap, I would probably trim it. Kind of like what I would do with a brisket, where I'd want it to be about a 1/4 inch thick. This one came this way. And so it's not super thick. It's not super heavy. It's going to render really well, really nicely in the smoker, so I'm not too worried about the fat cap at all. It's going to work out really well. It's going to taste great. So now we've got it salted. Now all we need to do is just put it on a baking pan and then throw it in the fridge. Let it sit until we're ready to pull it out to smoke it. So you're going to kind of notice, and I'll show tomorrow when we get this out and pull it out for smoking, get it ready for seasoning for that. But it's going to kind of change color. It's going to you're going to see it kind of go from like a dark red to more of a brownish color. It's okay. It's what we expect. It's what we want to see. That's the salt doing its job. That's what dry brining is. Leave any comments in the comment section about the dry brining process. If you have any questions, ask questions there. I do respond to people's comments. I do answer people's questions when they have them. If you have any. All right, so the meat has been dry brining for a little bit over 24 hours now. It's got a really nice coloring to it. You can kind of see we're starting to kind of like brown, dry out. There really isn't a whole lot of salt left on the actual meat itself on the surface. It's all just really kind of buried itself into the meat. Exactly what I wanted. Now I'm going, and I've been letting this sit in the fridge, of course. I haven't been sitting on the counter. In the bottom of the fridge, just on a rack, just like this, on a cooking, on a baking sheet. If you're doing a piece of meat that's going to drip a lot of blood or whatnot, of course you can put it in a deeper pan to make it so you don't get a mess in your fridge everywhere. But it doesn't, prime rib doesn't really do that. This prime rib definitely did not have a lot of blood and juices spill out, so the shallow pan worked just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and just start seasoning this thing and getting it ready for the smoker. Offset's been warming up for about a little bit over an hour now. It is still cold outside, but it's not cold enough that I can't be outside, which is what I love. So I'm going to go ahead and start this right now. I always like to flip it over and season the side that I'm not going to be season the non-presentation side first. This is also the side that's going to be on the this right here is going to be on the grill of the smoker as well. For mine, simply because all the heat flows over the top, because I have an offset smoker. It's a good offset smoker, so the heat flows over the top. So I always do fat side up to protect the meat from that. If you have a pellet smoker, or if you have a smoker that creates heat from the bottom of the barrel smoker, you want to do a fat side down to protect the meat from that heat on that side. So just something to always think about. And you can see here this meat as well. Really, really good coloring from it. Really, this is all from that dry brining, just brining this thing and getting the salt into the actual meat. Drying it out a little bit, but not a ton. Like the moisture is still in the actual meat, which is what I'm looking for. Really going to just kind of plan on doing this kind of like a brisket, using just a light layering of mustard to get it to serve as tacky for the rub. I'm not going to over season it. Really want the flavor of the meat to stand out. Really want that dry brining to stand out too, which only enhances the flavor of the meat, right? Like it just makes it richer. It doesn't actually change the flavor. It gives it more. So just a little bit of mustard. I'm kind of planning on this thing being in the smoke, cooking for up to like 6 hours. I'm gonna end up searing this thing also, but I'm going to really try to show the value of the Franklin, and I'm going to show how we can get this thing up to a really, really high temp, and just show that it can be seared. I'm going to test, I guess, to see if it can be seared in there, which I believe that it can be. So that's kind of what one of my plans for today is treat this like a brisket, but of course we're not going to take this to 200 plus degrees. We're going to take this to a reasonable temp. Well, what some people would consider reasonable temperature, and then going to sear it, and then going to slice it. Of course, with resting in between. So, got my rub. Just going to use coarse ground pepper and kosher salt, 50-50 mix, just half and half. When I mix them, I just kind of eyeball it, but if you want to measure it, you can. So it's exactly half and half, but just half and half. Shake it up, get it all nice and mixed well together. Then just start sprinkling it on. Really hoping to get some good bark out of this also. This thicker coarse ground pepper is really going to help with that. Going to help to attract smoke and really create a really nice bark, which is what we want. Going to try to get all of these edges, all these sides. Get all of this. Get my mustard out of the way. Going to get this and this. Just all the way across the front and the back. Again, I don't want to over season the thing. Don't want to make it so that all you taste is pepper and salt. Just want to get it so that it's nice and seasoned. Get it to stick so that we can create a bark. It's really what I'm shooting for here. Definitely want the flavor of the actual meat itself to stand out. Still have one hand that's gloved. Can use my other glove that I took off. This is the inside of the glove, right? So it never actually touched any meat. I'm going to try to use this to help me flip this thing over. Perfect. Still have a clean hand. Another light amount of mustard, not a ton. Don't want to make this don't want to coat it in mustard, right? Just want to lightly spread over it to make it just tacky, make it a little bit sticky. Again, this mustard is not going to impact the flavor of this at all. Won't even know it was on there when we go to eat it. I mean, I'll know it was on there, but you guys will know that it was on there, but nobody else will. Again, just lightly seasoning the thing. Don't really want to go super heavy. Don't feel like I need to on something that already has a lot of flavor. So, and again, you know, with the salting of this with the dry brining that I did beforehand, same thing I would do with a steak. So really, I guess we're kind of treating, I mean, because this technically is ribeye, steak's just not cut up, we're technically treating this like steak and a brisket, I guess, combined. So we're going to try to do a little bit of the best of both worlds, best of the steak world, best of the brisket world. So, got this thing seasoned. What's next? Pretty sure I measured the length of this thing. Pretty sure I'm just going to be able to set it straight on, just like this, onto the grill. So it's all the way across along the width, as opposed to having to turn it and having it going long ways into the smoker. This way, hopefully, we'll keep it all even. Going to put some probes in it, put 2 in the middle, 2 on the ends. Just make sure that I'm watching the temps, watching how they're rising. If I know my smoker as well as I do, I know it does have some certain parts of it that there's some veins and some parts of my smoker that will heat up faster than others, just the way they all are. It's important with any smoker you've got to really learn the hot spots of it and the cool spots, and learn where things cook faster, where things cook slower. I've done that with mine. I've done it with all of mine. The smoker that I have now, my Franklin Pit, it's my 4th one that I've owned. I've intimately learned all of them. Anyways, going to put 4 probes in here to make sure that I know if one side's cooking faster than the other, I may get in there. Don't want to have to do it, but I may have to kind of flip it or orient it around differently so that it will actually cook evenly. You know, this is not my prime rib. This is actually my mom's that bought it. So cooking it for Christmas Eve, and I have lots of people in my family that like different temperatures for their meat. For me, I would pull this thing at 130, sear it, and call it a day. But I have some people in my family that like it to be a little bit more well done. I know. You don't have to tell me. We're kind of killing this thing, but it's okay. Everybody has their different likes, their different dislikes, and when you're cooking for lots of people, you kind of have to learn to accept that not everybody likes things the way you do, and you kind of have to accommodate people. So I'm going to try to make it so that the ends here are what's going to be more of the well done or mid well done, and in the middle, of course, your medium and to your mid rare, right in the center. So that's what my goal is. Don't know if I'll be able to achieve it, but that's really what I'm going to try to do. Temperature in here, going to treat this thing like a brisket. Probably start around 255, 260, maybe 265, but I'm not going to be very long before I'm going to ramp this thing up to 275 and really get it going. Should cook at about 1 pound for every 20 minutes at 275, which would get this thing done in about 6 hours. It says about 16.5 pound prime rib. And then the other thing is I'm going to make sure I have some cider vinegar handy. Hopefully I don't have to use it very much or at all. But if I do, just kind of monitor this every hour or so. Maybe, at first I'm going to let it go for a lot longer than an hour. But then after that, just kind of monitor it every hour. Look for any spots that are drying out on the edges and just try to hit them with the cider vinegar to keep them moist. But really, I think that's pretty much it. I'm going to make it so that the fatter side is facing the firebox so I don't dry out this side over here that's a little bit thinner. So that way, really cook this end first and hopefully not dry out the thinner end over there as all prime ribs have. So many of you know, that my wood that I use is not kiln dried. It's naturally seasoned. I get it from someone here local. Because I get it from somebody local, I typically buy it in bulk. I usually get at least a third quarter at a time, and then I just kind of have to chop it up and split it myself. These people sell mostly to restaurants that use bigger cookers than what I use. So there, the wood is really meant for them. So I usually have to get out my saw, chop it up, and then split it also. And then I have a holder, just a rack that I put the wood on, that I keep it covered so I can keep it dry. The problem with my holder is that the one I have now is it doesn't hold quite a third cord, so I usually end up having to kind of stack it on the side in the summertime and keep it from getting wet that way. And in the summertime, this last order of wood that I got was in the late summer, and I didn't quite use up my covered wood fast enough before the snow came. The snow came earlier this year, so I ended up having a small stack of wood that got snow on it, and it's just kind of been sitting, and I've been waiting for a day like today where it's a little bit drier, that I can, with a break in the weather, that I can start to dry it out. You can see in the background back there I got some wood around my fire pit that I'm using to dry it out. So I just want to kind of show you guys, what I've come up with to dry out wood, get it so that it can be used soon. So I'm just going to kind of show you guys what I've got going on right now. So right here I've got just some logs that I'm drying out on top of my firebox while I'm just got it going. Figured I'd put some on here. This is something that I don't normally do. I typically never will preheat logs. I just never found that I've really ever needed to. Normally I keep them down here, and down there they get plenty of heat from the firebox to light very quickly. But up here I'm just trying to dry some logs out. You want to be really careful when you put logs up here. Watch for when they stop steaming, so that you can know when they're dry and pull them off, because they will catch fire up here, believe it or not, if you leave them up here long enough, and you will have a bunch of logs going full blaze on top of your firebox, which none of us want. So watch for that. And then over here, here's the rest of my logs that I split this morning, and they're just kind of sitting around a fire. I got the controlled fire in the middle. I don't feel like I have a bonfire going, but it's a pretty good sized fire going, and all the logs around drying out. You can see right there some of the steam coming off of them right now from the logs drying out. So just kind of like with the firebox, really want to watch over here. Want to make sure that none of these catch fire. Watch them once they do start to dry out. I'm going to just go ahead and stack them. Over here, this is what I use to store my wood. That I was kind of talking about. So they're all just stacked in here. These logs have been in here for quite a long time, and they're all dry and ready to go anytime I need them. But I'll probably just stack my logs over here on this side for these ones that I'm drying now. That way I can know which ones not to use, the next few times, but get them under here, get them covered, and keep them from getting wet again is really the goal. So really just wanted to kind of show you guys what I'm doing right now, a little side project that I'm doing while I'm making this prime rib this morning. There's my log splitter that I use, just an electric one. I used to just use just a normal mauler and a wedge, and sometimes a hatchet and a hammer, but ever since I started buying in bulk and having to really just split all of these logs by hand and chop them all myself, I've invested in an electric log splitter to make my life easier. It's really helped out a lot, saved my back a ton, so something I recommend for anybody in my position that needs to split a lot of wood. Get a log splitter. It'll save your life. Now we'll go ahead and take a look inside the cook chamber. So I've got the water pan going, so here's the prime rib, looking really, really well, really, really great, really liking the coloring of it, really coming along well. Fat is really starting to develop a nice bark, got some good coloring there. You can see the 4 meter probes that I've got in there, just going all the way across, so we can make sure that we're just getting a good accurate temperature reading of everything, of all the meat all the way across. Really, really important. Haven't had to use the cider vinegar yet, which I'm really liking. We're about 2.5 hours into this cook, so coming along really, really well. Really pleased with it. Update on my wood project, side project. Here's some more logs that are on here just drying out. Pile over here is diminished significantly. I'm really, really happy with how the logs have been drying out.
You know, I'm trying just to get the outsides dried out. Don't want to totally dry them out to where there's no moisture at all, of course, but definitely want to get them dry so they can light. I really feel like that I'll be able to use these on a future cook. You know, I may have to pre-warm them on top of the firebox like these ones are, but I feel like that I'll be able to use them sooner than later, which will make it so I don't have to go out and buy any bags of wood or any bundles of wood. You know, this will get me through till spring so that I can get me through till spring until I can get my next large order of wood in. So we'll check back soon and show you how it's looking when it gets closer to being done. Okay, so here it is. It's coming along really nicely, looking really well. I backed the temp way down on it, just really trying to get it so that, you know, it's getting close to being done, and just trying to do what I normally do. Even in a brisket, I would back the temperature down to the end and just kind of let it finish cooking all the way to the end, and kind of let it slow down a little bit. Let it, almost like it's starting the resting period in the cooker, even though it's not. You know, part of the fat's kind of peeled back on it, but that's okay. Still, it's really good, really great. Still getting some nice coloring, some nice bark on it. You know, we'll close the slits, we can keep it going, but really happy with this, really pleased with it. I think it's going to turn out really well. Just wanted to give everybody an update. It's been in there for about 4 hours.
Okay, so the meat is now registering at temperature where it's ready for me to pull out. I'm going to pull it out and rest it. So we've kind of accomplished exactly what I was wanting to. The ends here are both registering at about 150 in the 150s. The middle probes are registering in the 130s, so the very center is going to be, you know, 130-ish, maybe a little bit less. So getting exactly what I want, where I got the mid-well to well-done pieces on the ends for people like that, the medium to mid-rare in the middle for the people who like the mid-rare, which is me. Anyways, I'm going to use, you know, my gloves here. Don't want to pick this up with tongs. Really want to be as gentle as I can. Don't want to ruin the bark. Don't want to ruin anything with this meat at all. Just pull it out. Going to set it right here in the pan and just let it rest. So I'm going to let this rest, I don't know, maybe a half hour, maybe an hour. And then eventually what I'm going to do is come out here, get the fire going, just blazing going. Get this temperature gauge up here on the smoker up to about 500 at least, and then we're going to put this in here and sear it. I'm going to sear it for about 2, maybe 3 minutes. I'll sear it for probably about 2 minutes, then I'll check it, look and see how it's coming along, how it's looking, and if it's not good enough, I'll sear it a little bit longer. May have to rotate it around also to sear both ends. We'll see how it's going to turn out. Never really done this before on a Franklin, but I really believe in this thing and know how sensitive it is to temperature and to fire. And I know that when I've seasoned it before, I've been able just to peg this thermometer, and so I know that I'll be able to get the temperatures up there. Just want to see if this is going to work or not, and see how it's going to turn out. But so far, it's looking really great. Awesome bark, exactly what I wanted to see. You know, definitely got that smoky brisket flavor, look to it. Right here, where the fat kind of like split apart, you know, kind of broke up our bark a little bit, but that's okay. And that's to be expected, and not much I can do about that. Just the way it happened. So, but again, everything looks really great on this. Really happy. You can actually take it inside. It's freezing cold out here. Don't want this thing to come down in temp too quickly. So go get this set up, and when we're ready to start searing it, I'll be back to show you guys the sear. Alright, so I've decided I'm going to show you guys how to get this firebox, get the fire in the firebox built so that we can sear the prime rib. Not rocket science, not hard. Probably most people can figure it out, but I decided to just show you anyways. Nonetheless, just so that everybody understands what we're doing and how to really do this. And one thing I wanted to point out, Franklin door still opens and closes. Been running this thing for 6-7 hours now. Door's just fine. Again, have no idea why some people complain that their doors don't work. My door has always worked just fine. Worked perfectly. Had no issues with it. Had no issues with the handle opening and closing. Works great. So if you saw my review video I did recently, where I addressed this, still works. So anyways, going to go ahead and open this up. For me, I'm going to use fire gloves, my barbecue gloves, sorry, just because I really want to make sure I don't get burned, especially if these logs ignite quickly and get going. I also showed earlier how I did was drying a bunch of wood and drying it out. I'm actually going to use some of those logs for this also. But anyways, I'll go ahead and just kind of get the coal bed spread out. Make sure there's just kind of a nice little valley in here. Really want to make it easy as possible. So adjust this a little bit. Hopefully you guys can see okay. There we go. So, going to take some bigger pieces to create our base with. Put bigger pieces right on the bottom. These are those pieces that I have not, that I was seasoning earlier today. Figured they'd be great base pieces. Really want to have just a base built up to keep it, as your foundation for this fire. I'm really going to just build big bonfire essentially. It's probably going to put it out a little bit, which it did, but in any case, it doesn't really matter. It's gonna relight. Gonna just stack it just like this. Get it all in there nice. Just really gonna put as much wood in here as we possibly can. Give it a little blow. I can see that it's already starting to catch back there. With this, we want to get the smoker up to at least 500 degrees Fahrenheit at a minimum. We're going to get this really hot. If you have a temp gauge that isn't super great or heavy duty or reliable, please feel free once you hit that 500 degrees just to take it out and leave it out and just keep your fire in here going nice and hot. For me, I already know I've had mine way past 500 degrees, way past it. I mean, it almost hit a full circle when I seasoned this thing the first time. And my temperature gauge still works just fine. It's a tell true, but that's what Aaron Franklin puts in his pits for the Franklin pits. So really high end, really high quality temp gauge. Not worried about it, so I'm going to leave mine in. But if you feel like you need to take yours out, if you're worried about it getting ruined, please take it out once you hit that 500 degrees. So I'm actually going to go ahead and open up my cook chamber real quick, get some air flowing. And then just help it along. So hopefully you can see back in there, those logs have caught. Those are actually the bottom logs down there that I was drying out earlier today. So they're catching, everything's coming up. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and close the cook chamber. The final step that you need to make sure you do, and you always do whenever you're trying to really get these really high temps built up like what I'm trying to do, is you want to shutter the door as much as possible. If yours doesn't, with mine, I can go ahead and close it all the way if I want to. It's going to keep going, going to keep burning. You can see the fire in there. Got these notches cut out from Franklin, and then of course the Franklin writing. This is just enough oxygen to keep the fire going inside of there. But if yours doesn't have those notches and it's just a solid door, just kind of crack it a little bit. Well, leave it open just enough to get air in there, but you definitely want to shutter it and close it as much as possible so that we push all of the heat up into the cook chamber. So anyways, going to go get the Alright, so the Franklin is up to temp, got up to 500 degrees. Got a massive bonfire going on inside the firebox. I was able to use a lot of those logs that I was pre-drying earlier today, just trying to dry out. They worked really well, did exactly what I needed them to do. They caught fire, they created that big base so I could keep stacking on top of it. Meat's been resting for about 40 minutes now. It's taken about 20 minutes to get this thing up to 500 degrees. So what I'm going to do is just quickly put this up, put it on, and then I got my timer right here. going to start my 2-minute timer on it, and then we're going to check it if we're done, and then go ahead, or not check if we're done, but open the lid, see how it looks. May go a little bit longer, may not, but I'm going to go ahead and get this in here now. All right, so the timer's gone off. Going to go ahead and check this thing real quick. Going to actually just put one glove on so I can be ready in case I need to pull this thing out. And I'm going to look at it real quick. Oh yeah, looking good, looking real good. I'm actually going to go ahead and do this for like 1 more minute. Then I'm going to pull it out. One thing I really wanted to point out with this is I'm doing this on Christmas Eve. It is cold outside, and this really shows off one of the other strengths of the Franklin, that it can really transfer heat from the firebox to the cook chamber. It has convection. It has the ability to really move that air from one heat source into the cook chamber, and it's keeping it right at 500 degrees, which is fantastic. I just had to mess with the fire a little bit to kind of just keep it going a little bit. But the other thing too I wanted to point out is we have a clear smokestack, clear smoke coming through. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Super impressed with this. Super happy with it. This thing is just going really well, turning out really nicely. Just really happy with everything, how it's been coming along. I feel like we're really just displaying what the Franklin can do, not just from smoking, but also just from being able to sear something like this. Like, it's pretty incredible, especially on a day like today where it's cold. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this thing out now. Okay, and there we have it. And nicely seared. Oh yeah, look at that. Nice and crispy, nice and seared, exactly how I wanted it. You know what? I don't know if I dare. I'm going to go ahead and put this back in and flip it. Get the other side seared. Going to do not very long. Hopefully I don't ruin this thing. Just going off of my feel, going off of my gut. Feel like that I can do this for just 1 more minute. Get that sear on that thinner side for just a minute, and really make this thing magical. Make it so both sides are just really well seared. Probably saw the flames coming through. I don't know if you could see them, but they're just coming through here, and really having to hold my breath, which is something you really want to get in the habit of with any offset smoker, is just holding your breath every time you go by the firebox, every time you open your lid. You don't want to breathe that smoke in. It can't be good for your lungs, can't be good for your health. So just hold your breath, do what you need to do, and then exhale when you're done. Now, if you need to breathe, just turn your head away and breathe. But try to get used to holding your breath, keep your lungs clean. Don't need to kill yourself while you're making your food. So the timer's about ready to go off. I'm going to go ahead and open this lid now. Okay, fantastic. So hopefully now, turn that off. Hopefully now you guys can see, now this side is a lot more seared now than what matches the other side. So now both sides are just heavily seared, which is exactly what I wanted. This side kind of came out, they had a bark, it had that smoky look, but it wasn't seared. Now both sides are seared, both sides are crusty, crispy. This is going to be so good. So now what I'm going to do is let this rest, and then once it's done resting, I'm going to slice it. Okay, so now the meat's done resting. So now the moment we've all waited for, going to start slicing this thing up and see how it looks, see how it comes out. Start with this end here. I've already mentioned this before. Some of this is going to be kind of well done or even mid-well, so it's not all going to be red like what we all love. That's okay. Just going to start slicing it. Check it out. See how it looks. even on this done side, it's super juicy, super soft, super great. Hopefully y'all can see that on the camera. Should be able to. So I don't have a camera crew, so everything I do is just through tripods and multiple cameras. This is all just looking super, super great, super, super delicious. Exactly how I wanted it to turn out. Really, really happy with this so far. And it's been resting for about a half hour, actually 45 minutes, so should be plenty of resting time. I'm going to go ahead and just pick up this piece. This is where we're starting to get into the mid-rare, rare. Look at all that juice. It's just coming off of it. Really, really good. Really, really great. You know what? I'm actually going to go ahead and try even one of these well-done pieces just to see how it's going to be. Just want to get the corner. Don't really want to get too much of it. So it's definitely well done, but it is so good, so flavorful, so juicy. Only way that I can describe it is it's like if a steak, a ribeye steak, and a brisket met up and made a baby. That's exactly what this tastes like. That's exactly how it turned out. So we've got the best of both worlds of barbecue. I've got the steak flavor that we really want, kind of prime rib, but then I've also got that smoky, good brisket flavor too. And the sear on that thing was fantastic. The seasoning was great. You could really even taste the salt from the dry brine that I did. Right, now we're really getting into a lot of these more redder parts. So I've got people coming over here soon, so I'm going to go ahead and finish slicing this thing up real quick. You know, if you like this video, please just subscribe. Feel free to comment. If you have any questions, I'll always respond to your questions. Anything else you want to see, please post that. I'm happy to make more videos, more content, show whatever it is you guys want to see, whatever it is that I'm missing. Happy to show more and to do more. Always interested in your suggestions. Always willing to respond. Always willing to help anybody that wants to learn how to make food like this. So, till next time, we'll catch you later.